It's here! On Writing Magic, Part 2. Magic with characters and world building. Yeah, so this is Part 2 of how to write magic systems. If you haven't seen Part 1, go check that out. Link up in the corner and in the description. In this video, I've done my usual research and writing and analysis to put together this awesome Part 2 from my magic series, so I really hope you enjoy. So without further ado, let's jump into it. For this video, we're going to be using Inkheart by Cornelia Funke, The Kaidyn Chronicles by Rick Riordan, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, of course, Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, Artemis Fowl by Owen Colfer, Fablehaven by Brandon Sanderson, Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, Wings of Fire by T.G. Sutherland, Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, and Aragon by Christopher Paolini as references. And I forgot to mention The Language of Ghosts by Heather Fawcett. Oh, and a quick disclaimer, I'm going to be numbering the parts like where I left off in the previous video, so I left off at Part 5, so the first part of this video is going to be called Part 6, just, letting you know. We touched a little bit about this in the previous video on writing magic systems, but this time we're going to go deeper. We're going to discuss a few different points. 1. How your characters use the magic. 2. Why do your characters have the magic? And 3. What is the magic? Let's first talk about how your characters use the magic. In my first video on magic systems, I talked a lot about the magic itself, about costs, limits, and weaknesses. But we haven't yet talked about how they actually do the magic. An example can be found in Cornelia Funke's Inkheart trilogy. The magic is done by reading out of a book. You can't just wave your hand and it happens. You have to read the book aloud, so that whatever you're reading will come to life. That's how the characters do the magic. In Rick Riordan's The Kaidyn Chronicles, to do the magic, it relies on speaking and most often drawing hieroglyphs. You can be very creative with this, and it doesn't always have to be centered around speaking spells and having cool magic wand blasting sparks everywhere. You can take Brandon Sanderson's approach in Mistborn, where the characters swallow certain types of metal and burn them, quotation marks. Basically what I'm saying here is, do they snap their fingers to make a fireball? Do they do a good old karate kick? Or do they drop on the evil will of power and death magic that is immortal, and cast spells that make their enemies tremble before them, even while they are slowly dragged into darkness and evil, until Sauron is possessing them? Nay, precious. Just please go away. I'm trying to teach writing here, talk about writing here. Go away, please. Precious! Anyways, next, why do your characters have the magic? There aren't really any specific things to follow when considering this, but there are a few good questions to ask. First, where does the magic come from in the first place? And second, why can your characters do this magic? Where does the magic come from? In Jessica Townsend's Nevermore series, Morgan's magic comes from a thing called wonder. And Morgan can do the magic because, well, she's a wondersmith.
Because the Greek gods came down from the sky and gave her cool powers like breathing fire.
Would you go away? That's definitely not what happened. Sorry about that. You don't have to find out why she necessarily has it. It's okay to have things be a mystery, even to the author. It can make the world feel like smaller and less large and big if you know everything. But it's often handy to know where the magic comes from. In Mistborn, it comes from metal. In Owen Colfer's Artemis Fowl, the magic comes from planting an acorn. But what about why your character can do this magic? There are obvious answers like, because they're a wizard, or he was bitten by a radioactive spider. I never watched that movie, don't mind me. But in some books, there is a little more depth to this question. In some books, it's genetics. Others, like Fablehaven by Brandon Mull, your characters are granted the use of the magic. Be creative with this. And for our final point about magic and characters, what is the magic? This is pretty simple. What is the magic? Is it an elemental magic system where the characters can manipulate the elements at their will, or is it wave your wand and magic happens? Or is it magical dust? Who knows? You can even use a language to center your magic around, like in Aragon or The Language of Ghosts by Heather Fawcett, which actually has 9 different languages with different magics attached to them. The Language of Ghosts, I mean. The Language of Ghosts does this really well, where it has each language you can speak one, or some people can speak more than one, and the language controls the magic system. So there's so many things that you can do with this. This kind of ties into where your magic comes from and why your characters have it, so be creative with how these points work together.
There are endless possibilities.
So basically, how does your magic affect your world, and how does your world affect your magic? Let's start with the first. How does the magic affect your world? It can depend on the story, but guaranteed, if you have magic in your story, it will affect your world. If you're using a secondary universe, that is. One of your magic systems is like Mistborn, where people can digest metal and burn it to do cool stuff. If metal is important to the magic, obtaining metal for allomancers is a key job, and Brandon Sanderson does this beautifully in Mistborn. If your magic needs certain things to work, those things will probably be important resources in your world. In Harry Potter, people can't do magic without a wand, and to make wands you need certain things. Harry Potter's magic system, being quite broad, also enabled witches and wizards to fly on a broomstick and cast spells to do pretty much anything. If people couldn't fly on broomsticks, think of how their world would change. Quidditch wouldn't have been invented if it weren't for the broomstick. Wings of Fire's magic is called animus magic. We talked a bit about it in my previous on writing video. But the more someone uses it, they start to lose their soul. The result is in the Ice Kingdom being very strict about animus magic, and their rule about animus magic being only the animus being able to cast one spell during their life. This is an example of magic affecting your world. Okay, but what about how your world affects your magic? It's the same thing we just talked about, except, well, flipped around. I'm going to use the same example that I just used with animus magic and the Ice Kingdom in Wings of Fire. The Ice Kingdom is the strictest and most rule-abiding tribe. This reflects in their treatment of animus magic. In the Five Kingdoms series, the techniques of shaping magic, pretty much, is used mostly for salvaging purposes due to the desolate land of Sambria. Think of what the world values or dislikes most and how that could affect your magic system, or what they need most and what they most need in their world. One thing I've noticed through these examples is that yes, the magic itself is often affected by the world, but it's often the usage of the magic that is generally more affected. What the magic is used for, how people use it, etc. Another thing you might want to consider when building your magic system is the world's most obvious trait. That could affect your magic. What if it's set in a jungle? How does that shape your magic? This is not completely necessary, but it is interesting to think about.
My precious.
Okay, now for our final part. What role does magic play in your world? Now you might be thinking, come on, Kaidyn, we just talked about this. But wait, the role magic plays in your world is not the same as how magic affects your world. But let's dive into it. What role does your magic play? Is it mainly for religious purposes, or is it more generalized towards battle situations? And what is your world's view on the magic? We're going to look at 2 points. First, what purpose does the magic serve in your world? And second, what is the world's view on the magic? So first, what purpose does the magic serve? This is completely up to you. Have fun with this and be creative. One thing that might help you, though, is to think about what your world's culture or your world values most. Are they very warlike? Do they value kindness? Learning? In Mistborn, and I know that I've used this a lot as an example, but Mistborn is actually praised to have one of the best magic systems ever created, so I kind of just have to use it. But in Mistborn, ferochemical magic is based around memory and passing knowledge down to the next generation, something they value quite a bit. Ferochemists are called keepers, and their magic lets them store endless memories and knowledge. I personally think Fear Chemi is really cool. And finally, we have... This is a pretty easy question to answer. Does your world fear magic? Does it revere it? Or is it just something of everyday life? In Lord of the Rings, magic is mystical and most don't know how it works. It is thought of as strange and even slightly frightening at some points. In Christopher Paolini's Aragon, magic is not very common among humans, dwarves, and Urgals, but to elves, it's normal. How does this work with your world? You can play with this. And so, we've come to the end of my Writing Magic series. I hope you enjoyed watching these videos. I mean, it was only 2 videos, but they were fun. And I'm going to do more how to write videos in the future. And I love doing a lot of this content. It's really fun. It takes a long time to research, write, and create, and edit, and film, but it's really fun for me. And I love writing, and I love to examine all those different aspects of writing. But I hope you like my analysis on this subject, and yeah, I hope you got some awesome knowledge, and maybe you're just able to, figure some stuff out about your magic system in your book. I know I sure did. I learned a whole lot from this. Doing all this research, I definitely went back and looked at my magic system in my book and, fixed stuff up. But I hope you enjoyed this. So go out there, be your awesome self, and create magic.